Welcome back. Bold like a leopard here, talking to you about the Tim Pool discussion with Sam Seder. So it was about an hour and a half, and despite the comments in the comment section that were clearly slanted in many cases to indicate that Sam Seder had won what they're calling a debate, it's pretty clear that we're seeing the type of universe that Tim Pool has been describing in his videos, namely that while left-wing people consider themselves more intelligent and better informed and more tolerant than people who are not on the left wing, moderates and right-wing people are able to better see the viewpoint of other people. And this is why I would say, if you want to call this a debate, I don't think that Sam Seder won. I think that it plainly showed that he is living in this universe of essentially parroting the media and telling the viewers and listeners of his show that legally and rhetorically, Donald Trump is going to be impeached, and he should be impeached, and there's no two ways about it. And that's really the perfect snapshot of journalism and punditry today, and it's been like that for a while. Obviously, there have been cases on the right when things got that way, especially with Bill O'Reilly and Glenn Beck about 10 years ago. But let's get to some of the issues. So the main one that I saw early on was this discussion of whether Donald Trump could cut foreign aid for whatever reason.
He did. Trump said it several times, though.
No. Why was he holding back the aid when he's not authorized to do that?
I mean, if you want to talk about whether...
why did he lie? Why didn't he go to the Senate, to the Republicans? Why didn't he say to Ron Johnson, we're holding up this aid because we need to get to the bottom of this 2016, hijinks?
I hear you. I agree. I mean,
well, that doesn't make sense to you, does it?
Hold on.
Hold on.
No, I agree. Wait. Let me just say this.
Wait a second. The fact is that you can say there are two sides to this argument. Of course there are. But you cannot sit there and look at the sort of basic truth that Donald Trump lied about this. And when someone lies about something, he did. He did.
In what capacity? What capacity? Like, just explain the lie.
He said to everyone in the White House, including Mick Mulvaney and others, that when anybody asks why this is being held up, you tell them it's interagency, some interagency problem.
And you're saying it's not interagency.
It was not, and we know that. We know that.
So what do we know specifically?
We know that Donald Trump said, hold up on the money. And when people ask about it, say that it's an interagency squabble. We know this. We know this to be true.
Okay.
You can go and Google it right now. The same sources you're talking about have reported this in every single outlet that there is. So the question becomes to you, Tim, why would he lie about that if what he was doing was perfectly reasonable?
So you're saying the Ukrainians recanted on not knowing about it being held up?
Tim, answer my question first, and then I will.
Right. So
why would Donald Trump lie about this thing that you're claiming your sources say is perfectly reasonable?
I didn't say it was reasonable. I'm asking whether or not it's related, right? So your assertion in the beginning was that it was extortion. And I'm trying to set the parameters for what would constitute extortion and lead us to impeachment.
Changing the topic.
Listen.
Donald Trump lie about?
There's a million and one reasons why he would lie. I have no idea.
Give me two.
Okay, the carpenter slipped and spilled coffee on the carpet, and he was panicking and said, "We got to take some money from a budget and move it to clean the carpet." Like the point I'm making with that is we have literally no idea what's going on in the White House, and there's a bunch of other confidential aspects of foreign government and aid we don't know about. So to make the assumption that this was specifically about extorting the Ukrainians when Ukrainians didn't even know is a leap I can't make. So we can say this: Trump should not have withheld aid and lied about it. That's a fact.
So the discussion here is twofold. And earlier, Sam Seder and Tim Pool had gotten into it over whether Ukraine had known that Donald Trump was withholding the aid. And the crux of the discussion is that if you are trying to exert leverage against someone and they're not aware of it, are you really exerting leverage? And that was Tim Pool's point. And Sam Seder had basically said that that was immaterial to the discussion. The second statement, which Seder says at the beginning of the audio that I just played, is that the president does not have the right, he's not authorized to halt foreign aid. This is plain and simple a distortion of reality. And this is a paper from Duke University Law School from 1970, and it says right here that nor can Congress direct that such relations be commenced or specify the ranks of our representatives. The president, in effect, has executive power to control and make policy with respect to the existence of our relations with foreign governments. The president also has executive power to decide the content and mode of our relations with foreign countries and to conduct the same. Thus, he alone decides whether or not to undertake negotiations, whether it be of a treaty or an executive agreement. The remarks of Benjamin Curtis, a former Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, in defense of President Andrew Johnson at his trial for impeachment, are revealing. Suppose a law should provide that the President of the United States should not make a treaty with England or with any other country. It would be a plain infraction of his constitutional power, and if an occasion arose when such a treaty was in his judgment expedient and necessary, it would be his duty to make it, and the fact that it should be declared to be a high misdemeanor if he made it would no more relieve him from the responsibility of acting through the fear of that law than he would be relieved of that responsibility by a bribe not to act. The president has sole power to determine whether or not an agreement or treaty should be finally concluded, even though the Senate has already ratified it. And while the law with respect to the termination of treaties is in a somewhat confused state, it seems clear that the Congress cannot direct the president to terminate one. The executive alone transacts the nation's day-to-day foreign affairs. Thomas Jefferson, then Secretary of State, stated that the transaction of business with foreign nations is executive altogether. So the supposition made by Sam Seder that Donald Trump would need to go to Ron Johnson, the head of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, I believe, in order to get approval to withhold aid from Ukraine is fallacious. The Senate can vote to disperse the aid to a country like Ukraine or like Saudi Arabia or whoever, Israel, Turkey, the Philippines, any of those countries. They can vote to do it, and the president can come and say that, well, I'm not going to abide by it. In fact, just this weekend, there was this story. It says, Warren says making Israel aid conditional on settlement building is on the table. Now, some people could make the argument that this is more based on policy than on some sort of personal vendetta, but it is her prerogative, if she becomes president, whether to disperse the aid to Israel. And most people who disagree with that would have a hard time being able to prove that in the courts, and usually it doesn't come to the courts because it really is not something that can be litigated there. This is my opinion. I am not a lawyer, but I am relying here on some legal opinions from Don Wallace Jr. of Duke Law School, as well as an opinion by Golden Bell, the Assistant Attorney General under President Roosevelt. So please like, share, and subscribe. Also subscribe to me on BitChute as well as on Minds and Subscribestar if you want to donate. Those are all at Chef Leopard and on Gab at Starscream85. And I'll talk to you later. And there will be some other segments relating to the Sam Seder interview.